South Asia is brought to you by Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo, together we'll go far.
Hello and welcome to Eye on South Asia. I'm Bob Navanan.
And I'm Sunil Hawley.
Every week we'll bring to you the latest news, views, and happenings with South Asians in North America. Sunil, welcome back to the show. This week we're going to cover our latest headlines from this past week, and we have the Treasury Secretary of U.S. Timothy Geithner and Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke. They were actually in India this past week, and they have been meeting with corporate leaders in Mumbai, as well as they were attending the meeting of Indo-U.S. Economic Financial Relations. And Timothy Geithner, he was talking a lot about how the Indian economy and the new projections for the way it's going, he's very optimistic about the situation. And he says that actually, even as the International Monetary Fund broke the 5% barrier in growth projections for Indian economy in 2012 and 2013, he says that it's led him to believe that there's a renewed sense of initiative when it comes to India and its economic growth. And it was interesting because a lot of the government officials that were present at this meeting, the Indian side, they were a little bit skeptical of this overly optimistic view that Geithner had taken, and they actually questioned him as to, what should be done in the next steps in order to revive growth with India. And he kind of said, it's not in his place to actually comment on that issue, and he was, giving India the autonomy to make that decision by itself. But with U.S.-India relations and its ties, he's very, very optimistic, and he says that it's stronger now than it was 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's quite ironical that you have a U.S. official visiting India making such optimistic remarks, and the people belonging to the country are not as gung-ho or sure about it.
Exactly.
But overall, I think it has to do with what has been the recent change in the overall mood of India as the Prime Minister unveiled the second round of liberalization, as you may call it, the foreign direct investments.
Right.
I think that has actually been long awaited, as we used to talk about for quite some time, since December actually. And now with that back in place, I think everybody is upbeat for the Indian economy. Obviously that helps the global economy because India has a large consumer base,
right,
with 1.3 billion people. So I guess that only helps us in creating a upbeat mood. But coming back to US, we had the second debate.
Exactly.
Did you watch it?
I'd seen some bits and pieces of it, but it was kind of an overwhelming response that was different from the first debate. And it had
first
said
one was
it was a disaster for Obama, in terms of how it was perceived. And this time Obama really stepped up his game,
right,
and he was going on the attack, so.
But according to some of the Indo-Americans who have been very significant, including, let's say, Dr. Shivani, he's from Mississippi, and he has been a senior elected delegate for the Republican National Convention for quite some time. I think it's been 12 years since he's been here, and he is one of the highest fundraiser ever, and he broke actually his own record. This year he raised about 1.7 million for Mitt Romney, which is better than his last time record of 1.2 million that he collected. But he is very, very clear that Obama is anti-India. Now, it's not as black and white as it seems or what he says, but I guess from, like you said before we were starting the show, there is a general perception that Obama is anti-India because he keeps on talking about not outsourcing. And when it comes to outsourcing, people think outsourcing means India.
Right, and it means pro-India, and that's what the perception is. And when he says that he sees Barack Obama openly criticizing IT companies for outsourcing India during his campaign speeches, because he wants to energize his US base and make them feel like he's bringing jobs back into the country, because that's one of the biggest issues, for this election, is growing jobs.
I think I'm not an advisor, but I think what Obama needs to do is he needs to present his thoughts the way you're talking about, which is that he does not want to outsource everything from America to other world, especially India
Right.
for that matter, because India has also the companies that handle a lot of outsourcing from America are also bringing lots of jobs to America, which is what
Exactly.
Dr. Shivangi says in his arguments. You look at Infosys, you look at Wipro, you look at Tata. These companies have brought lots of jobs to America.
Yes, and they're actually hiring U.S. citizens.
Absolutely, and they are, of course, when it's like Indo-American tie. You have an American side, you have an Indian side. Both sides hold hands and provide these opportunities.
Exactly.
But again, Dr. Shivangi makes a point. If you really look at it, Republicans typically have been a little bit pro-India, and that's why I kind of feel he is connecting that to Mitt Romney. Yet to be seen how he does it. You can look at what happened when George Bush was the president. He was one of the, I think, very strong proponent of Indo-US relationship. In fact, his nuclear treaty, which is a landmark, he listed as one of his biggest or the most significant achievements.
Right.
And before that, if you look at when India exploded their nuclear bomb, atom bomb, Bill Clinton, who was the then president, otherwise a great friend of India, was very critical. In fact, he imposed sanctions.
Right.
And despite Congress taking them out, he did not remove them until almost till the end of his term.
And that's very interesting because it's similar to what Iran is going through right now, that position that India was put in back then.
Correct. So I think this will keep on going for another month and a half, and probably for
Right.
long, because both parties have their positions, and I think, generally speaking, like you said again earlier, whoever becomes the president will be looking towards India.
Exactly. It's definitely a force to be reckoned with. And on the other side, we have some more Republicans, some more conservatives. Indian American documentary filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza, he is quite a critic of the Obama administration, and
Yeah,
he's a
he's-
well-known conservative from
Yep.
the Indian American side. He's actually released an anti-Obama documentary, and he's releasing it online and on DVD. And he's just going over what America would look like in 2016 if he were elected.
Exactly.
And he's literally painting like this doomsday picture of the situation.
But I think that is not as bad as he says, but
Right.
it's an interesting project, and he has got a great track record in the past.
Yes, it's made a lot of money. It's made like 33 million, I believe, at the box office. So it's doing well in Republican sectors. On the other hand, we do have Indian Americans actually stepping up their efforts
Sure.
from the youth committees.
Yeah.
And they're working on getting the base energized for Obama again. So they have come up with Dance for Obama. And this is a very fun and interesting initiative. We have Anjali Khurana. She's the originator of this effort. And she has brought together 19 different organizers and choreographers to organize this flash mob. And it's going to be, it was actually conducted in 19 different cities in several different states, going on simultaneously. And they were to dance to this song called Forward, and it was fully branded, by the president's campaign logo and everything. And the whole point of it was to really bring the community together. Of course, the youth like dance and arts and a way to engage actively. And this is just their way to do it, because she felt like, compared to the last election season, there isn't as much energy in the Democratic side, in the Obama campaign, because last time, as you remember, we had Obama Girl, and we had Yes We Can, all of these media efforts that were dedicated towards propelling Obama's campaign forward. But now she's just taking the reins and going for it. So
Very interesting. Everything is in the mood for the elections, which are just about the corner now, around the corner. But looking at United Nations, which happens to be next door to us, New York, I think there was quite a bit of activity and alertness that was sounded from everybody's office, including the bin, the Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General.
Right.
He has been quite vocal recently, and this time he spoke about ending the child marriage. And he thinks that we need to educate the girls, which is the bottom line, which is the anchor part of the whole exercise. That if the girls get into education, they first continue to engage in the educational side, and they're not forced to get married.
Mm-hmm.
And he thinks once they get educated, they can make their decisions, they can take their actions. And he actually adopted October 11th as the International Day of the Girl Child, which is to recognize girls' rights and highlight the unique challenges girls face in the world today.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, he appealed to the youth, young men, that they should support this initiative and try to end the child marriage, which is a very, very evil thing, one of the last few evil things left in the society.
Right, because a girl's life, a girl's childhood is cut short. She's forced into this marriage. It disrupts her education, limits her job opportunities, increases her risk of being a victim of violence and abuse.
Think of violence and abuse. What happened in Pakistan, which again UN Chief Ban Ki-moon has very strongly opposed, like many other people have opposed.
Yes.
This 14-year-old girl, Malala Yousafzai,
Yes.
she was basically protesting against the stopping the girls from going to school. She is promoting the fact that the girls should go and get education. She, along with two other little girls, this is a 14-year-old girl, think about it, probably in 8th grade herself,
Right.
was shot at. Fortunately, she survived, and the other two girls also got hurt, though. But the United Nations have come very strongly about it, that they cannot stop this kind of demonstration. Or it's not really a demonstration; it's basically education, to educate the girls.
Exactly.
And while we have Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which has claimed the responsibility, shouting from rooftop that they're responsible for doing it, I guess this is absolutely an evil on the society. And again, on the United Nations, there was activity because there was an international and regional cooperation called for, whereby the different delegates from the different part of the world had come in. And from India, we had Dharmendra Yadav, who is the youngest member of parliament from UP, Samajwadi Party, and he pointed typically on the drug trafficking, because this drug trafficking brings all the money which is being used, falls into the wrong hands, that continues to grow the terrorism primarily, if we want to look at it. So he said that we need to have a concerted international effort to dismantle the infrastructure of terrorism, including its invidious network of epicenters, training facilities, and financing. Essentially, he wants to cut the financing sources, which is essentially the backbone for the terrorism to spread.
Exactly.
And talking about terrorism, India's ambassador to United Nations, who is a great speaker as always, was very, very strong again, saying that we may be thinking that Al-Qaeda has been eliminated at the top, but they are very much out there as a dangerous force. And he was there addressing as a keynote speaker, and he said his particular concern is the Mediterranean region, because there is a threat from Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, which is called AQIM, and which continues to have a considerable influence in that part of the world.
Right. And it's not just like a regional problem. These groups are scattered around the world in different pockets. And as you said, when you cut the funding at the top, it really serves to dismantle the whole organization. So
Right.
that's really where the solution lies. All right, so we're actually, we've run out of time for this segment, but we're going to take a short break.
Sure.
And we'll be right back on Eye on South Asia.
Eye on South Asia is brought to you by Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo, together we'll go far.